Okay, we're here to kick off the Under the Hood Web3 Dev Tools panel. My name is Miko. I will be your moderator today. I'm with Gumi Cryptos Capital, venture capital firm. Giacomo, who is in this empty chair here, he's actually coming from another panel and coming to the building, so he'll be here momentarily, and then we'll have a full panel. So we have a really a good panel for you today. We have RootScan, Infura, Block Native, Agoric, all here for you today. And I'll start actually. I usually don't do many round robins. I usually try to break it open a little bit, but let's start with a round robin, which is, why don't we start on the far end with Dean? And what we can do is have each speaker introduce themselves and the problem and project that they're working on, and then we can kind of come back. So Dean, why don't you start?
Hello, I'm Dean Tribble, and Agoric is a platform for doing cross-chain smart contracts, right? Programming seamless use cases that span multiple chains and ecosystems is way harder than people think and way more important than people think. That's what we specialize in, and the technology for that has been taking a long time to build and is rolling out now, and we're very excited about it.
Awesome.
Okay,
Hey,
Matt.
everybody. I'm Matt Cutler. I'm founder and CEO of Block Native. We've been building core transaction infrastructure largely in the Ethereum ecosystem for about 6 years. And we've recently really focused on Web3 gas markets. Just today, we're beginning to roll out what we call Gas Network, which is a distributed Oracle platform for Web3 fees. Basically, if you're trying to do anything cross-chain or multi-chain, on Chain A, you need to know what the gas price is on Chain B. And today, there's no way to do that natively. It all happens off-chain. So we're normalizing all the gas markets, putting them on chain via oracles. Today we support 40 unique chains from gas pricing, and today we're rolling out 6 oracles across 6 different chains, so you can get to that stuff. And we're really excited to get it to everybody so they can go hands-on.
Okay, Iris.
Good afternoon. I'm Iris. I'm a product owner working at Infura, more specifically on our decentralized protocol, which is called Decentralized Infrastructure Network, or for short, DIN. We are basically a permissionless marketplace for Web3 infrastructure, like RPCs, APIs, blockchain data, and we're basically evolving Infura's legacy into something more open and more community-driven. So the easiest way to think about us is as a decentralized wholesale platform. So you have providers who get connected with bigger gateways in order to scale up, and this helps reduce centralization risks, and it also helps build a more resilient and diverse ecosystem.
Okay, great. So I'm actually going to speak a little bit about the main topic and hold forth a little bit about where we are. Part of my goal in expressing this overview is really just to create maybe some controversy, but I'll just start with my own perspective, right? Which is that I come from the land of open source and, developer tools. I've been doing developer tools for almost 30 years now in Silicon Valley, starting with the Java language and platform. Some of the common roots actually have with Dean, but I will say this, which is that one thing that's guaranteed in open source is effectively chaos, right? Now, people can describe it as decentralization, but really, it's going to be wildly chaotic, right? And obviously, Web3 has injected money into chaos. And of course, now we just have money chaos, right? So that's a fascinating state that we're in. Now, one of the amazing things that can happen in this context is that developer tools, are really an effort not to necessarily impose a grand unifying schema on top of everyone's chaos, but rather to create an actionable perspective, right? So really, the developer tool space is really about creating perspectives that developers can use to produce action, right? To do things, right? That's the power of the developer tool. So I think we're at an incredibly great state in the market. Like, we're big fans of actually the chaos that was predicted. I think a lot of integration tools are arising. It seems to me that all three of the panelists here, are focused on effectively integration tools, which are tools that help deal with chaos, right? So I guess, I'm going to start with that overarching theme. And I'd love to kind of open the floor. So, let's have someone else hold forth a bit on chaos. Maybe Dean looks like he's
I
ready.
definitely want to start there because one of the things we've been talking about is, in some sense, the wonderful chaos of all these chains coming up. With the modular explosion, with L2s, you've got, the world has convincingly moved to the multi-chain is the only chain. And those things are connected, but they're all coming up at different times. They've all got these different approaches and applications. And the things that users want to do span more than one of these, right? And so now people are scrambling to how am I able to produce these use cases that can use, AMM over there using the asset over there, or, take my money from there in order to buy the thing over there. And it turns out that's really hard. And people thought it was much easier. People who haven't done this before, haven't done distributed systems before, thought that would be much easier than it turned out to be. And but that chaos is really an opportunity. That chaos is exciting. And now we need to kind of, wrangle it so it delivers its value.
So I'd love to throw this to Iris to talk about kind of the marketplace model, and then to Matt to talk a little bit about kind of inefficiencies, right? Because that's the gas topic, right? But I would say that Iris, one of the things that so this is Giacomo. I'm going to bounce it to him, but I'm going to keep the conversation flow. So Iris, so I was talking about money plus chaos. Right. And one thing that you could argue is you could argue that money plus chaos equals markets. Right. You could argue that. So I guess I'm trying to get your perspective, which is how do you look at kind of marketization, and how does your view kind of create at least a local order on top of the multi-chain? Because multi-chain is inherently chaotic, but I think that is the final state. Right. When you look at open source, like one of the things, like if you look at something like Linux, there's an infinite number of distros. Right. And that's a feature. That is not a bug. That is goodness. Right. So I guess I'm trying to argue for marketplaces, but go
All
ahead.
right, got you. So, just to offer a bit of context, so when we initially started working in the RPC space, it was about like 6 years ago. Marketplace itself was very centralized, so you could order. It's very controlled and not really that chaotic. So, as the developer space has evolved, we kind of had to shift our offering to a more sort of decentralized marketplace. And this is where, the sort of chaos flavor kind of comes in. Now, this is great and it offers a lot of benefits, right? More resiliency, um, more scalability, but at the same time, you have to really work on establishing certain rules and protocols in order for this to work. Because as I'm specifically referring to the RPC marketplace, because this is kind of the business that we're in, and we noticed that this is going to become scalable because the developer needs have changed over time. So people don't just need RPC, they need reliable RPC, they need RPC that doesn't fail. So by us opening the marketplace to create something a bit more decentralized, it helps scaling this, and it offers a barrier of entry for a lot of providers that maybe wouldn't be able to reach audiences just because maybe they have a small team, maybe they are not able to run customers support like the bigger gateways do. So in this sort of organized chaos, I think we offer more opportunities to more companies and teams to kind of participate in the marketplace.
So quick. So I'm going to go to Matt and then Giacomo. But the quick follow-up question to that is, what is difficult about the RPC market, like producing coordination in that context?
So there you need to make sure that you kind of provide a sort of standardized experience for the users, because every provider runs RPC in their own way. Obviously, you've got the standard API framework, but everyone still has different latencies, different prices, different performance stats. So you kind of need to find a way to sort of equalize this so that the user kind of gets a unified experience, rather than I send some of my requests and then they are kind of inconsistent. So you want to be able to provide a consistent experience from the user perspective.
So that's a super important underlying theme. And this is kind of how I want to throw it over to Matt, which is I really want to talk about kind of the results of the chaos? Because one of the things that you've been focused on recently has been sort of the gas, right? And obviously the gas variability is like part of the chaos, right? But the thing that's really strange about gas is that there's also, on top of gas, there's sort of an MEV function, right? So like, I guess I'm really curious to get your perspective on this segment, because that, some of the consequences of chaos is inefficiency. So I'm really curious to get your view.
Sure, of course. So all of us deal with gas. It's a fact of life in Web3. I like to say there's three guarantees: death, taxes, and Web3 fees. And the gas markets are, of course, characterized by high degrees of volatility. And of course, the volatility is exactly correlated to your urgency to get something done. So when you don't need to do anything, gas prices are low. And when markets are in chaos, you need to get things on chain. And that's when it's really hard to do so. There are multiple dimensions of chaos in the gas market. So you have volatility per chain, but then every single chain has its own nuances, and you have interdependencies between them. So for instance, if you're transacting on an L2, you have the local fee market of the L2, but then underneath that, you have the fee of the L1, and you have latency delays because your L2 doesn't settle down to the L1 right away. So there's estimates that go into the transaction as to what your L1 settlement fees are going to be, and then there's underages and overages that the chain corrects for. Each one of the chains does this differently. So it turns out that there's actually quite a bit of complexity when dealing with what is the price of a transaction, particularly in a multi-chain way. And so this is why we're building Gas Network, is to normalize all of that stuff and to put it all on chain so it's verifiable. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, the nuances of this stuff isn't really that important to each individual application developer. What everybody really wants is reliable transaction behavior at a reasonable cost. And so that's basically what we're trying to solve.
So Matt, one of the things that your narrative makes me think about is it makes me think that there ought to be some mechanism of financialization where you ought to be able to prepay for transactions in the future, right? And then what can happen is that the base chain can sort of like financialize that, right? Because obviously some will overpay, some will underpay. It's like an insurance business, right? Which is, if I want to make a transaction, I want a guaranteed route. This may
It's more
come
like the
back.
gym business, by the way.
Yeah. It's like the gym business, like 24-hour fitness, right? Where people secure a lifetime of fitness and then they use zero. But Matt, go ahead.
Well, so that's generally referred to as block space futures. It's something which has been the focus of a lot of attention over time and has never really been solved. There's some new stuff happening right now, and we very much believe that this is the sort of stuff that can be built on top of Gas Network. The challenge you have is you have a decentralized network, so you don't really know who controls the block space. And so I can guarantee you that you're going to get included, but I can't deliver on that guarantee because it's some validator that I don't control. And then there's this tricky thing called the base fee, which is if I sell you a future transaction at a price of 5 gwei, but the base fee is 10 gwei, you're not going to get on chain unless somebody spans the gap. So the reality of the nature of how gas markets work make block space futures particularly challenging, and that's why it's still a problem that's so far unsolved.
It feels like a venture investable coordination problem. Okay, so Giacomo has arrived. So introduce yourself, talk a bit about RootScan, and then we'll try to fold it all together.
Yeah.
But the broad theme is that multi-chain equals chaos, basically.
Yeah, and I'm going to object to the broad theme, but go ahead.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
Yeah, no, I'm
Let's
going
fight
to
it
chat
out.
as well. Yeah. So, I'm had Giacomo, head of growth at RouteScan. We are the world's first multi-chain unified block explorer, meaning that we index more than 60 chains right now, and you can see them in just one explorer. So if you're a developer, if you want to deploy a contract and you want to deploy with create two so that you can deploy on the same address across many chains, you can debug your application easily on RouteScan because you see all the bytecodes on a single page, and you can just switch between them. And so yeah, can I just follow up with
Of course, that's the purpose.
So yeah, we are trying to solve the problem of this chaos that is the multi-chain world, and right now we are betting on EVM because we're betting it because it's the most complex thing that you could index. because if you try and index on a Cosmos or Solana, for example, Solana is really easy to index, but Ethereum is really the hardest thing to index. And so when you do it once, you want to do it for all the chains that are possible, and also 98% of the chains that are out there that are more than 2,500 now use EVM as their execution layer. So we kind of want try to abstract a few major metaphors, like I don't know, an account begins with 0x, and then the transactions are not UTXOs, but it's just transaction-based model. And then on top of that, we have like bytecodes, and we have a lot of metaphors that we can aggregate. And so we're trying to solve the chaos, But the thing is, and this also aligns with the chain abstraction thesis, is that for developers to have a chain abstracted future, we need to have a very complicated and chaotic backend on our side, because it doesn't matter if you're running on AWS, Oracle, or a mixture of those, but the developers will solve the UX problems for the users. So you don't know right now, if you go on Airbnb, you don't need to know that, you don't need to interact with AWS, just like when you are on an app, not a chain, an app, you don't need to know which chain you're on, which bridge you're using, anything. But the developers need to know that and need to optimize for that. So that's what we're trying to solve.
But what I wanted to assert, though, is that when I say that chaos is endemic, I think it is essential to say that, because one of the things that happens when you create a pure abstracted view is that a pure abstracted view is an attempt to tell the user that the user doesn't need to worry about anything that's under here, right? And the thing that's really interesting, so let's say that you're using, block native gas network, right? So then the focus of the user becomes on something like price, right? Where it's like, oh, I just want to get my transactions cheaply, right? But the point that I'm making is that when you get down to the level of consensus, right? Like, there are entire chains whose entire purpose may be to just completely rug everyone, right? So the point that I'm trying to make out of this is that there is an endemic nature that is chaotic, right? And that it isn't necessarily solvable through veneers. So that's my kind of argument.
It may also be inherently fun.
But I wanted to taunt Dean and then give him the shot to retort.
So chain abstraction and doesn't mean hiding all the details. It means once you've decided among things, you get to just use them the same way, right? When I go to Europe, I buy a hamburger by swiping a credit card, and I get a simple experience that has been put together by orchestrating all of the services for our financial industry underneath. So when I buy that hamburger, and so you swipe a credit card, get a hamburger, there's currency conversion, foreign exchange markets, hedging, numerous banks potentially involved in the bulk transfer of the money that was my euros converting to dollars in my bank account, right? But my experience as user has to be simple, right? The orchestration stuff that we care about is out of all of these available services and the chaos of that we suffer as providers, putting together simple user experiences and the end-to-end user experiences that users want. Now, the place where this matters is most times when I'm swiping a credit card, right? I want to get a flight, right? And whichever credit card I decide to use, I'm going to use the same mechanism to buy it. Some people will care about first class versus coach. Some people will care about going.
Yeah. But let me fight back.
And we don't hide it all.
By the way, this is a panel style. So you all here, you should shout into whatever I'm saying, right? So don't wait to be called on, right? But what I'm saying is that if you're let's say you're in Europe and you're in a shop and the shopkeeper is like, some grumpy person, right? Like, one of the things you can get from that person, you come into a store and you're like, oh, I want this, right? So one of the incredibly nice user interfaces that you can have to a grumpy person store is the grumpy person can say, you don't want that. Are you dumb? Right? And this is actually a great user experience, right? And the reason why I'm telling you it's a great user experience is that what people want isn't always what they want. And in fact, people who are somewhat naive want things that are exceedingly bad for them, as has been demonstrated clearly by, by the market. So I feel like Matt has something.
I would just say that it depends on where in the stack you are, right? Like, you don't want to build a car that can't be driven off a cliff, because driving off a cliff is bad, but it's going to be a useless car, right? So at the end of the day, the tech is just the tech, and it's a matter of like which applications people choose to engage with, and the
driving off a cliff.
Again, the decisions of the application developers. So there is a little degree of like, how paternalistic do we want to be towards our users versus how much do we want to say, look, you're entitled to make your own decisions, whether those decisions are good or bad, right? At the end of the day, this is what free will is all about. And this is why we want to develop experiences that people feel comfortable with, but also leave room for things on the fringe, right? There's this easy thing that we say, oh, grandma's going to lose her savings in Hawk2a coin. Like, grandma's not there. And if you're in Hawk2a coin, you're going for risk, right? And so this whole idea that, oh, we have to baby everybody, I think is not the idea. The idea is we want to enable new experiences and let 1,000 flowers flourish and see which ones come to the top.
So one of the reasons why I'm going down this tube, by the way, is that we've seen this incredibly weird transformation of the word intent. Right? Which is that weird transformation is there used to be this thing, cow swap, right? Which had this thing called intent. And there used to be these crazy solvers, right? And the thing that's really interesting is that the intent is actually always super simple, which is the intent is give me the cheapest way. That's the intent, right? That's very easily solvable by something that's very heuristic, right? Which is this number is bigger than that number. I'm going to give them the smaller number. Like, so that's not a problem. That's never a problem, right? The thing that has happened with the word intent is people are now injecting AIs on top of users' intents, right? And that's terrifying and horrible, right? Because that's the case where you're absolutely enabling, empowering, and literally driving users off of a series of like unforeseen cliffs. That's my assertion. So anyhow, just wanted to say that that's one grand unifying theory of uniting the chaos of Web3.
So how many cans of worms would you like to lay out?
Agreed.
Okay, sorry. So I'm obviously making it quite difficult, right? So I guess to me, I'm just laying out sort of frontier challenges, and of course, you all are welcome to retort.
So a critical thing with respect to intents, right? It is still the case that intents are richer than what you describe, where, I mean, and, like the Agoric system had offers, which were an early intent system and drove some of these ideas. But it's, I will give you this if you give me that. And yes, you can solve it at the what's the cheapest price, but some people care about what's the quickest time. Or simply, but all of the intent systems have started trying to edge into really, what people need is orchestration, right? They need use cases that are more than just transfer money. And they're just starting to add the transfer the money and then do one contract action, right? So Across is adding that. Ag Layer is adding that. All these, 7683, right? All of these things are adding that, do one more hook action. That won't be enough, right? People will want the second hook action. Move my money, put it into my Aave position, and set up a stop loss. Oh, crap, I can't set up a stop loss because I can only do one thing. But being able to say, here's what I want, what are my execution options, that abstracts away, but you still want to be able to choose. Once you choose, I want the fastest, then it executes the same way as giving me the cheapest. Or once I choose, no, I'm not willing to go through that ratty-ass, rickety bridge. I want something that's actually got a full validator set, right? That's my level of trust. Give me intents that satisfy that, and you can set those kinds of standards.
Only use canonical bridges, or only use solver networks, or only use bridges that have 10 validators, or only use relayers, or whatever.
And, that will start to evolve where, grandma's not an expert at it, but she'll use, the next generation of some trustworthy brokerage house that will establish the standards that her intents will solve with. And that'll get the, that'll keep her out of that Hawk chain or,
Yeah, but this is just like, I don't know. I use Waze when I drive in my car, and most people don't know it. Like most normal people don't know it, but you can actually choose between the best solution, the fastest, and the shortest. So this is what you can do, and if you're just like a little bit of a power user, you can just tweak.
Yeah, to me, Intense is just a UI approach for a class of challenges and a class of use cases in Web3. It's only, an example of those, but it's a really powerful UI approach to solving that. Solvers is a particular implementation, but like our fast USDC thing is on-chain solver that doesn't have any sort of odd off-chain risk stuff, and it doesn't have the concerns that you're talking about. But so.
I mean, I think one of the reasons why I'm posing this set of challenges is that ultimately, chain abstraction is a high producer of kind of grand unifying theories, right? And so I think that the issue with grand unifying theories, obviously, is that to me, the reality ends up being much more local solutions and perspectives, right? So it's like take something like RPC, right? Like consumers of RPC are a specific subsegment of the universe, right? And like there are, so it's not the universe consuming, and that those consumers have very specific requirements that you've enumerated, right? So I feel like ultimately fragmentation in the application layer is one answer to fragmentation in the infrastructure layer.
I can.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
So I kind of listen to what everyone said, and I hear everything about intent, but I feel like a big mass of the users just in general don't really know what they want. They just want something good. You kind of, as a builder, a lot of the times you kind of need to decide, maybe my baseline offering is going to be something that I decide is going to be good for the user, like my sort of benchmarks of, I'm going to give you an RPC that's fairly priced okay. It has like, everything kind of medium, and then I can give you the option as a user if you want to get more specific to kind of tailor the experience for you. So I think you want to be able to give the user the ability to tailor the experience if they want to, but also there is a vast majority of people that just want like the generic, I just want something good. But good is like, they don't really know what that means for them yet.
That's right. That's the grumpy shopkeeper, right? Which is, you don't want that, you want this, right? That's
Yeah, but some people want to be told what they want to get, so...
Yeah, and the developer tooling, I mean, this is a Web3 dev tool panel. It's all about what are the values of the application you're trying to build, and then what tools basically align with the values that you have. So if you're trying to build a highly centralized, high-speed thing, there's a certain tool stack that you use for that. If you're trying to embrace decentralization, trustless, permissionlessness, composability, there's another tool stack you use. And I think all of these things are a continuum, and so there's no quote-unquote right or wrong. It's like, what are we doing here? Now, we're all in Web3 because we believe in decentralization, we believe in trustlessness, we believe in permissionlessness, we believe in composability. We at Block Native are trying to build tools that align to that sort of building behavior. I think most people on this panel are trying to do very much the same thing. Mm-hmm. And that allows us to deliver experiences that sort of align with the values that we're trying to put forward to our end users.
Comes to mind, I wanted to just follow up on
Jack, go ahead.
Yeah, on the RPC thing. And yes, sometimes people want to, be told what they want. And sometimes people would like to be told what they want, but actually they don't. So like, we've been in Explorer business for 4 years now. Previously we were Avascan, we built Avascan. And so in 2 years, we tried to understand EtherScan's business model, and we were trying to build the next gen blockchain explorer. We failed. We failed. We started to make money, and we are making money because we understood that people were complaining about EtherScan and were saying that they wanted something different, but nobody actually wanted something different. Everybody wanted exactly EtherScan. So we did that, and we drove the prices down 99%, and that's how we beat EtherScan to the market in, of course, some cases. So what I mean is, there are some like inefficiencies that can always be solved when you look at trying to just to complete everything and make everything together. You can solve inefficiencies at the same time, use the same product that you already have, like just see people what people they're using. It's not what they want, but it's what they're using. So that's what we use as a benchmark, and then go forward with that, and then just go and add a little bit of things, just like here and there, and try to test some things. And if they're right, just continue on that path. But really, like little things.
So I'm aware that we've regrettably run out of the panel time. I do want to say this, right, which is one of the themes that seem to arise as a meta theme is this concept of Europe, right, which is this grumpy shopkeeper. You were trying to buy something in Europe, right, which is that if you go to Europe, you actually have lots of people with lots of different cultures living very close to each other, most of whom have stereotypes of one another and who are slightly grumpy about the existence.
I'm Italian. We love French. We hate French.
Have many things to say about French or any other neighbor, right? And so, in a sense, this is the world that we will live in, right? Which is that I think Web3 is going to be densely populated, and it's going to have a lot of countries, and they're all going to have to find ways to coordinate, or else we won't get there. All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Nico.